Hi everyone, Tasha with Stardust Gold Crochet. Welcome to the Hearts Baby Blanket Crochet Along. I'm so glad you guys are here and I wanted to go over this entire pattern with you today. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe and hit the little bell button to be notified of all my future tutorials. I do stitch tutorials, crochet tutorials, and they're all for free. And the patterns are all on my blog as well, stardustgoldcrochet.com. So this crochet along is going to be a lot of fun. It's really simple. You'll need a few ingredients to make your blanket. You can make this blanket any size you want. You can make it large, you can make it small. I'm using Parfait chunky yarn in several different colors. You're going to need scissors, a stitch marker, measuring tape, and I'm using a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. But if you want to make a bigger blanket, you can use a larger crochet hook and you'll also get a little bit more of a feel for it. So there's going to be lots of different colors I've used in this blanket, and I'll show you all the squares I've done so far. So I'm doing 9 different squares. I'm just going to push that stuff out of the way. So this is what it looks like. It's a heart, and the outer color is cream, and then the heart color, I'm doing different colored hearts for each square. And they turned out so pretty. I really love them. I wanted to do a project that was simple and that will help teach corner to corner crochet in a simple way for changing colors and also doing a decrease on one of the sides and an increase while you're increasing on one side and decreasing on the other to show, because it's not a perfect square, it's actually a rectangle. So these are all the pretty colors and I love them. Of course you can do yours all in one color if you want, but there's 9 squares total, and then we'll be working the border afterwards. So we're going to get started and work one of these squares. It's working from a graph, and the graph is very simple. It's 10 tall by 11 wide. So very, very simple pattern. And let's get started. So grab your hook. I'm using a 4.5 millimeter hook. I'm going to start off with my white yarn or my cream colored yarn. Just going to set that aside and move all that other stuff aside. So the way you do a C2C graph, you're going to start down here in the bottom right hand corner. If you happen to be a lefty, you're going to start over here and work your way this way. Or you can work this graph any way you want. That's one of the things I get a lot of questions about, and they say, well, I'm left-handed, or I have trouble reading graphs and this and that. But you can really work a graph any way you want. You can work it from row by row, going like this, using single crochet. You can work it diagonally from bottom right to top left, from bottom left to top right. It's all up to you. You just have to be consistent. So once you start working it this way, you got to keep working it that way. You can't just mix it up in the midway. I'm going to start down here on the bottom right hand corner, and I'm going to work square number 1. So I'm going to start off with a slip knot, however you like to do your slip knots. And I use the 5-2 method, which is you're chaining 5 and then you chain 2 between each of the squares. So I'm going to start off with a chain 5. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to work 1, 2, 3. I'm going to work into my 3rd chain from the hook. It's 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to do a double crochet. You can do a half double crochet. You can do a single crochet. There's all different ways you can make this blanket bigger or smaller, and it's all up to you. So I'm going to do my first square by double crocheting 1 in each of the 3 chains, starting at the 3rd chain from the hook. So what I'm going to do now, before I do anything else, this is my right side. So I'm going to mark this right side with a stitch marker so that I make sure that when you're working the graph that you don't get confused. So now we did number 1 right here. We worked down this way, and now we're going to work back up this way. So I'm going to get a pen and mark this off as we go. We did number 1 I'm just going to mark mine down this way. So I did my first square. Now I'm going to do 2 up this way, and sometimes I even mark them with numbers. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That gives me a little bit of a indication of which direction I'm working. So if my 1 is down here, I'm starting down here and working that way. That's just a little tip for you. We're going to do the second square by chaining 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is called an increase. So then we're going to work 1, 2, 3 into the third chain. 1, 2, 3. Doesn't matter which way you count down from. It's in the center, so it's a third. And we're going to do a double crochet in the first chain there, and then in the second chain again, and then in the third chain. And this is where C2C gets a little weird. So this is what it looks like right now, but we want to work into this chain 2 space we made from earlier, actually from the beginning of the chain when we first started. So we want to flip it up so that we can get into that chain. We're going to insert our hook into that space and then do a slip stitch through, chain 2. I chain 2 between. Some people like to chain 6 to start. This creates smaller holes, and it's all about preference, but it creates a smaller hole in between the C2C squares. So I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to do 3 double crochets, 2 and 3. So there we've created our row 1 and row 2. We got row 1, row 2, and now we're going to go back and forth increasing until we reach 6, because it's all white. We don't have to do any color changes or anything until we reach there. So I'm going to do 6 rows of straight white. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the third chain from my hook and do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to, when I get to this part right here, I want to work into this one, so I'm going to flip that up so that I can work into it, because right now it's just on the down side. So I'm going to insert my hook into that chain 2 space, slip stitch through, chain 2. So we just created the first stitch of row 3, and now we're doing stitch 2 of row 3. I'm going to do 3 double crochets into that chain 2 space from the previous row. Then work our way up, and we want to have 3 squares for this row. Chain 2, 1, 2, 3 double crochets. So there we have our 3 rows so far. 1, 2, 3, and you can always count your rows by counting up either along the bottom or the top. So 1, 2, 3 squares. So that means you're on row 3. You've already crocheted row 3. So now we're going to do 4, 5, and 6. We do increases. This is an increase. 1, 2, 3. What it means by increasing is it means you're adding a row by doing a chain off the side instead of working back through. You want to flip it up, so you want to work into this chain 2 space here, that one. So we're going to go in through the front, chain 2 and 3 double crochets. Make sure you count them. Sometimes I accidentally crochet 4. I don't know why, it just happens. So there we've completed our 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count these. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 rows. We're going to keep going. All right, I just completed row 6. So my row 6, let's see, this was my right side here. So my row 6 went like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I'm going to do row 7. I'm going to mark my first square. And I usually mark the colors with numbers. So I've got 1 white, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my other color, and then 1 more white. And that helps me kind of keep track of things. And this really only works if you have a small graph to work from. When it comes to a big graph, it's really hard. So first we're going to do our first square, and that means we're going to increase up. We just did this one. So now we're going to do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains. We're going to chain 5, and that's our increase. And then we're going to work our square and work our way back down. And then we're going to change colors on that second square, and I'll show you how to do that. So for our first square, we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 5. Count 1, 2, 3, and work 1 double crochet in each chain down to the base of where your work is. 2 and 3. So we just completed our first square, and which is white. It immediately goes into another color, and for this tutorial I'm using the purple lilac color. Before we join into here to work our next stitch, there's a few different ways you can join colors. Personally, I like to just, for this project, I'm putting my hook in straight through. I'm going to bring this to the front. You always want to drop this yarn, your unworked yarn, to the front. And so I'm going to insert my hook, grab my new color. I'm going to lay it over my hook and just pull through the chain 2's space, and I'm also going to pull through my last stitch that I made. Then I'm going to tighten that last stitch so it gets up really close and tight. Drop the tail, pull up my new yarn and kind of pull it a little bit tight, and then I'm going to start working my stitch. So I'm going to do 2 chains and then 3 double crochets in each of those chain 2 spaces. So that I've got 1, I'm going to work 4 more for a total of 5, 2, 3, I want to make sure I had 3 on that one. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm not carrying my yarn. Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 1 more. You don't want to carry your yarn for more than 3 squares, and even that's pushing it. So what you do when you're not going to carry your yarn across a lot of color is you get another skein or create a bobbin. In this instance, I'm going to just use 1 big full skein of yarn for the other side. And I'll show you why that's important, because you'll see that this color breaks up. So this is about the point where you're going to need a new skein for all of this right here, and a different skein for all of this right here, or a bobbin. And the center is just all solid, so you just need 1 bobbin for that center piece and you're good to go. So here we're going to bring our purple yarn forward, lay it down in the front, insert your hook. Grab your new piece of yarn, put it over your hook, pull through both, pull that one tight, let your tail drop, chain 2, and complete your last square with your new color. And there we've completed our row 7. So let's count just to make sure we know where we are. And you know that this is the front side. We just completed the bottom. We went down this way. So we're right here, and you could lay it there and kind of get an idea of where you are. So I just completed this square, and now we're going to go over this way, so that's increasing down here with 5 chains increasing, and then we're going to work 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1 white, and we're working in this direction that way. So I'm going to increase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and do a double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, and in each across. And here I'm going to flip it up, and let's see, we have 2 white stitches. 1, 2. So I don't need to switch colors right now. I just need to flip it up and join it because it's like this, and I want to work there. So I'm going to flip it. Always pull your stitch on your hook or your loop on your hook tight as you're working. Okay, so now we're coming up on our purple, and I want to show you this. See, this loop right here is super loose. Make sure you pull that tight before you even start your next stitch. We're done with the white, so we're just going to grab this whole thing and bring it over to the front. Make sure you pull that tight, and then we're going to pull this up and work with it because we're not working with the white anymore or the cream color. We're just going to let that one drop. Go in from the front to the back, grab that yarn, slip stitch it all the way through. There's a trick for this. If you don't want this to come along that way, you don't have to have it like that. I came up with kind of a little technique that works pretty good on hiding it. So you insert your hook into the very first double crochet that's down there towards the base, slip stitch through, then insert yours into the next, slip stitch through, then slip stitch through both of those, insert into the next, slip stitch through, and there you're up at the top of your work, and you can just slip stitch through that last one and then pull that tight, and on the back side it just looks like a regular old double crochet. So now we're going to go back through though. This, we want to start at a different place, so we're going to slip stitch again and then work our 2 stitches. Our 2 chains and 3 double crochet. So we're going to work all the way up, and you want to do 5 in the color that you choose. 1. So I'm going to pause the video, you work your 5, and we'll come back when it's time to pick up our next color. Alright, here I've worked my 5, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Always remember to pull that last color change tight. Now I'm going to bring the purple forward, just going to bring that forward, pull up, pull that tight, and I'm going to pull up my white. I'm going to insert my hook. Now I can use that same trick I did before if I want to be consistent and just hide that kind of layover. There we go, and I'm going to pull it through, chain 2, and then I'm going to work that last square in white. That's loose too, so I'm going to pull that tight like that. And so this technically is our back side because this is the bottom of our heart. So when we flip it around this way, we'll see that that's the bottom. So having your stitch marker on there is such a good idea. It helps keep you on track. So here we completed this entire row. So sometimes when I'm finished with the rows, I'll just X them out, the whole row, and you can kind of scribble them down like that. So I'm going to start up here with number 9, row 9, and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then work 2 regular white squares. increase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3. So we only have one square we're doing now. We want to flip this up and we're done with our white, so we're just going to drop it. We're going to grab this purple yarn and we're going to just bring it straight through and grab it, bring it through our chain 2 space and slip stitch through the last square we made, and then make sure you pull that tight. Then we're going to start our color rows. We're going to do 6 purple, 1, 2 chain. When you crochet this, make sure that you crochet around the color that you carried over so that you don't get a strange little kind of look there. So I've got 1, oh, I keep losing my stitches with this yarn and hook. 2, so I did my 1 white, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to bring the purple forward, make sure that's tight, and you can use the trick. If you don't use the trick, you just insert your hook, bring it through, and you can't really tell on the back. It's not that big of a deal. It's up to you, whatever is faster or whatever you prefer. All right, we finished that row. So this is what we have so far. Make sure you pull your color changes tight, and you can always bring your work over, put it right side up, and compare to see where you are. Make sure that you're on the right track. So we just finished this row, number 9. I'm going to mark it off, and I'm going to go back and mark row 10 starting down here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to do a 1 and a 2, and you can mark the direction you're going that way, just so you know. So we need to do 3 white, and then we're switching to purple, and this is a good time to teach you how to go up from a stitch too when you're carrying the yarn up. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. You can always hold that third one, then you know exactly where to go back in, especially with plushy yarn. Plushy yarn can hide the stitches. So if you're a newbie and you want to do this project, that's a little trick for you. By the way, that popping noise, that was my ankle. The joys of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Okay, so this is our third. There we've done 3. I'm going to drop the white forward, and I'm just going to pull this one up and bring it through. I'm not going to worry about doing my hiding stitches right now. This yarn is very forgiving as well, so I don't think it's very important. But I am going to pull this tight before I forget. So now we work 5 purple, 5, and then we're going to do 2 of the white on the other side. So we're going to bring our purple forward, drop it, take this white, grab it, bring it through, and then we're going to do 2, and remember to work that white yarn into your stitch. I'm going to show you slowly. When you go around, you make sure that yarn, the white yarn, is above your hook so that it doesn't accidentally show the purple yarn through. All right, so this is actually the back side of our work. I'm going to flip it so I can visualize it since I'm a visual learner. And we just worked our way up this way, just like our chart said. So yay, we're on the right track. We worked our way up, and I'm going to cross these off. And then here is where we're going to start decreasing, because you can see we worked this square here is our final square. So now we're not going to be increasing anymore. We're simply going to stitch back through the top of the one we just did. Then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to work our stitches right here, our 3 double crochets right there. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but we're going to stitch across the top, chain 2, and then work our thing and start working down that way. So this will be our first square, second, but we're going to mark it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then down here we've got 1, 2, and 3. So let's do this, and I'll show you what I mean by that. What I mean by that is, so we've already completed 10 rows going this way. Our chart is 10 rows high, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's count. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we don't want to increase right now, because if we increased, then we would make it have 11 rows, right? Vertical. So we don't want to do that. We're just going to flip it right here, and then we're going to work a slip stitch into the first 1, 2, 3 double crochets. We're going to slip it 1, slip 2, slip 3, and then we're slipping through the chain 2 space. Now here is where we're going to start doing our first block, and we're going to do it right here. So now we chain 2, and imagining we're between the other 2 blocks, and we're working our 3 double crochets into that chain 2 space like that, and where it kind of brings it down, creates a flat edge on top instead of increasing. And now we need to do just 1, and we're going to go straight to purple. So we're going to bring that forward and drop it, pull that tight, and start working our purple squares, and we have 6 of them this time. Pull that. Okay, I have my 6. Now I'm going to drop that, and we're going to do 3 white. So I'm going to pull up my white, slip stitch through, and do 3 double crochets. All right, there is my last row, and that is row 11. So we just did row 11, and now we're about to do row 12. And as you can see, row 12 from the graph is 1 up. So we're not going to be increasing, because we're not going to be making it any bigger. Now we're just going to be decreasing and keeping it, maintaining the same size. Instead of increasing to do row 12, we're going to take where we left off, and we're going to slip stitch up, and then do a chain 2 and work our 3 double crochets right there. And then we're going to work up that way. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1 very last one. So we got 3 white squares. So now instead of increasing like normally would, we're going to flip this, and then continue to work our first square into the side right there. 1, 2, 3 double crochets. Now I'm going to pull that purple up. I'm still going to bring this forward around to the front of me, pull that one tight, and then work 5 purple stitches or blocks, however you want to call them. In my patterns, I write squares. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all we need. So our next one, we're going to have one stitch up here. I'm going to pull this back tight, and then I'm going to switch over to my white yarn and do one last final stitch right there. Always make sure you have 3. Sometimes you have 4. Like, I will just crochet an extra one in there. Once you get here to this point, we're going to slip stitch, because this is kind of a different kind of join and row. We're heading back up this way. We just did row 12. So it's a little different now because we want to slip stitch into the next. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to work straight through that chain 2 space, and you're going to slip stitch through. Then you're going to flip it, and right here work a slip stitch into each of the next 3. So that's just a little bit different than the very first time we do a decrease. So the second decrease is just slightly different. And now we're going to work row 13, and we just did our slip stitch there, and we're going to do a chain 2 and then work our 3 double crochets. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 colored ones, and then 1, 2. So here is another tip and trick for you. So we're going to carry our colored yarn up 3 spaces. We're going to carry it in the back because right now we want to use it when we get down here. We got 1, 2, 3 white, but right here is where our purple yarn is laying. So we want to carry that yarn down with us so we can pick it back up over that other one. So how you do that is you want to just pull this tight. You want to lay it up next to your stitches, and we're going to do a white stitch next. Don't forget to do this first square. So 1, 2. I do that all the time, and then I end up messing up and going, what did I just do? And it was because I forgot to do that very first square at the top. We're going to bring our white down, and we're going to carry this purple yarn. So you want your purple yarn just laid up here. Make sure it's on top of your hook when you go through, and pull through just like normal. So we did 1. Next time you want to make sure that it stays on top, and you're wrapping your white yarn around it when you complete your double crochet stitches. So there's my first one, and now here's your chance to pull it tight and just keep carrying that yarn, making sure that you're going around it when you do each of your double crochet stitches. Alright, so I did 3. Now we're going to pick back that yarn up after I pull it tight, and then pull it loose again. Bring your yarn forward, the white yarn. You don't want this to bunch up too bad, so. And then just like before, you're going to just pull it up with a slip stitch, chain 2, and work 3. Make sure you pull that tight. Now we're going to bring our purple forward, and we have 2 squares on row 13 to complete. So pull that tight, drop your working yarn to the front, slip stitch 1, 2. Now here we are again. We have that split there. We want to join these 2 squares with a slip stitch like we did the other ones. Flip it and slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, and then 1 into the chain 2 space. Flip and stitch. Just kidding. We just did row 13 coming down this way. Now we're going back up. 2 white, 3 pink, or 3 colored and 2 more white. These go really fast once you start working them. So I have 2 white, I'm going to drop my cream colored yarn, pull my purple tight, make sure I have enough yarn coming out, and I'm going to do 3 purple stitches. So I've got 3, and now we're going to do 2 more white. Make sure you pull that tight so it doesn't look loose. I'm going to make sure that's below your hook too, by the way. Pull it tight. Chain 2. 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to slip stitch into that last stitch, flip it, and slip stitch 1, 2, 3, and then into that chain 2 space. And then we're going to start our next row. But here you can see what we have so far. We've done all of these rows up to 14, and now we're going to work back down this way. So we've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 1. All right, so we are almost on row 15, and I wanted to show you a tip on how to count. So if you lose your count and you can't figure out where you are on your project, you want to count from the bottom right hand corner. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we know that we had 10 rows up. So once you reach this 10 square, just start counting this way, and it'll tell you exactly what row you're on. So you're on 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So now we're about to do row 15, and row 15 starts out with two white squares. So we do our chain 2, and then we're going to work our 3 double crochets. Minutes with 2, 3. Then we join to the next one and we work our next square. So we did 2, and now we're going to do 3 purple. So we're going to drop the white to the front, pull around back and make sure that you have your purple pulled tight, and then slip stitch through, pull that one tight, and work 3 purple stitches. I'm getting a little tangled up, so I'm going to have to untangle here for a second. After you complete your 3, we got 1, 2, 3, make sure you bring your purple to the front, and then we're going to continue on and do, we're almost to the end now, so we just have 1 stitch, and we're going to work that 1 slip stitch through and do 1 white. Slip stitch, flip it, and do your slip stitches in each of the double crochets across. Our next row is row 16, and we're coming up to the end, and then we're going to work the border around it. So we just finished row 15. I'm going to go ahead and mark 15 off. We started this way and went this way. Now we're going to start here and go 1, 2, 3, and 1. So here it starts to go really fast because you're getting right up to the end and we're not doing as many stitches for each row, which is great. So I'm going to do my first stitch. We only have one white. We've got 1, 2, and then 3 double crochets. 3. I'm going to put my white to the front, pull that tight, and then bring up my purple. Then we're going to work 3 purple stitches. So there I did 3. I'm going to bring my purple to the front, pull that last stitch tight, and now we have one final white stitch on this row, row number 16. Slip stitch, flip it, slip stitch in the top 3, and then we'll work our starting row 17. So we just did this one real quick, and row 17 starts with a white square. We have 2 purple and then 1 more white. All right, I'm going to pull that forward just like we've been doing, pull my stitch tight, and then we're going to work 2, and these are going to be the last 2 colored stitches, so we end up cutting the yarn right afterwards. And we'll also end up cutting one of our white skeins of yarn because we won't need it anymore after this. So we have our 2 purple. I'm going to bring that forward. Remember to always pull your stitches tight. Now we're going to work our last white stitch of row 17. Slip stitch. And now we can go ahead and cut our purple yarn, because we don't need it anymore. That was the last of our stitches. And I'm going to cut a pretty long tail. I usually cut tails that are around 5 or 6 inches. And so this is our working yarn right now where we are. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one because also we won't be needing that. We're just going to use our white to continue on the rest of the stitches. And the rest of the stitches are, we just completed row 17. So now we're going to do 3 white, 2 white, and 1 more white. So you basically work decrease stitches until you have just one little corner square left, and then you're finished. Yay! But don't cut your yarn after we're finished because we're going to start working our border pretty much immediately. Be careful on your tension when you get to this point because a lot of times you might feel a little bit more relaxed and start to loosen your tension. So try to remember your tension throughout your project so that when you get to this point where you're just doing white squares and it's super easy, that you remember the tension that you kept throughout and also the tension that you kept when you first started your project. And this is our last square. So how you finish off when you're finishing off your square is just like you do before. You're going to slip stitch through that last squares. We're going to flip it. Then you're going to slip stitch back to the corner, the very edge of the corner, and you're going to slip stitch through that chain 2, and that's our finished project. So the border, there's 2 different borders. I did 2 rows, so I'm going to show you both rows of the border, and then once we finish the border we're going to join the squares and then work the big border around the entire blanket. The written pattern for this square and also for the blanket are going to be on the blog for free. So we're not going to start off doing anything here. Actually, what I am going to do though is I'm going to bring these tails to the back so they're not as distracting to me, because I find them quite distracting. So to start your border, we're not going to cut our yarn. We're going to chain 1 and then we're going to single crochet 2 into the same corner space. And then in the space between the 2 C2C stitches that are right here, in this space, we're going to do one more single crochet. And here's where we start our simple crochet C2C border. You're doing a chain 2, skip over to that next space, and single crochet into that next space, chain 2, skip over to the next space, single crochet into that space, chain 2, skip over, single crochet into that space, and you repeat that across till you reach the next corner. And you want to keep these single crochets pretty loose because you're crocheting around this big puffy yarn. So there's one last space there. You're going to single crochet into that last space, and it will be a total of 9 times from when you start your repeat. So the repeat started when we single crochet into the space. It's actually the repeat starts with the chain 2. So chain 2 single crochet, that's 1, chain 2 single crochet, that's 2, chain 2 single crochet 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you'll have an 8 total repeats. And then we're going to single crochet 2, chain 1, and single crochet 2 into this corner. So just go anywhere in that corner space and do 2 single crochets, chain 1, go back into that same space and do 2 single crochets. And now we're back into this space here. We're going to start this entire repeat over with this first single crochet into this space here, the first little open chain space. So we're going to single crochet into the space, chain 2, single crochet into the space, chain 2, and we repeat that 9 times across. And the reason it's 9 is because one of our blankets or our blanket squares is 11 and the other is 10, so it just, the count differs just slightly. Oops, I made a mistake. I've done that before. Don't chain 2 after that last one, remember. So after that, we're going to single crochet 2, chain 1, single crochet 2 into this corner. And it's basically the same place where you did your first slip stitch is where you want to try to go under and kind of wrap your tail into what you're working in so it kind of disappears a little bit. Chain 1, single crochet 2, and so there we've done our little corner there. So right now we have 2 sides that we've done. We've done this side and this side, and now you're going to repeat around this side and this side the same as what we did here, and we'll meet back up right here. We'll meet back up right here to work row 2. So now we're at the end of the very last row around row 1, and instead of chaining 2 right here, you just work 2 single crochet, and then we do a chain 1, and then you join into the first, and I join from the back to the front. through that first single crochet. I'm trying to get through both loops like that. And there's our first row of our border, and what that does is it just evens out around the edges, which is really nice and creates a great space to work into with these little chain twos. So at the end of this, you should have 53 single crochets, which are including these single crochets between, and then each of the ones inside your corner spaces, and then 35 chain two spaces. So right now we're going to do row 2, so we're chain 1. We're going to half double crochet 2 in the chain 1 space that we just worked through kind of right here. 1, 2, and then we're going to half double crochet in the next 2 single crochets. After that, we do 2 half double crochets into each of the chain spaces. So 2 half doubles into the same chain space, and you just work 2 half doubles in each chain space going all the way across until you reach the next corner. And you'll do that a total of 8 times, working these 2 into the chain spaces. And again, you kind of want to do those loose. There's no reason to be tight on any of this. And once you reach the end, we're going to do a half double crochet in each of the next 2 single crochets, then do into the chain space of the corner, which is really hard to find, so it doesn't really, if you're not too picky, just try to get into the space wherever you find one. And we do 2 half double crochets, chain 1, and 2 half double crochets into that corner space, the chain 1 between from the previous row. So once you complete that, we're going to repeat around. Remember, we have a shorter side here and then a longer side here. We're going to work a half double crochet in the next 2 single crochets, and then back at the chain space we were going to work 2 half double crochets in each of those chain 2 spaces all the way around. We do a half double crochet in the next 2 single crochets. So after we reach the end, we're going to find that corner space and work 2 half double crochets, a chain 1, and 2 half double crochets into that same chain 1 corner space from row 1. And we keep working around. Do 2 half doubles in each one in each of the single crochets, and then work 2 half double crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces around. One half double, 2 half double, and then into the chain space, corner, work 2 half doubles, chain 1, then work 1 half double, 2 half double, and then this is our final side, side 4. And do 1. So now we've reached the very end. I just did 1 half double crochet there, and I'm going to work my next one, and then I'm going to work 2 half double crochets into that same space where we started, and chain 1, and then join these 2. And the way that I join these 2 is with an invisible join. So now it's okay to cut your yarn Now I'm going to pull this through like that. I'm just going to insert my hook through the front of this half double. I'm going to pull through this way to the front, and then I go through this first loop here from the back to the front, grab it and pull back through, and it just creates a nice little edge. And then of course you're going to weave in all your tails. So here is our square. I'm going to remove my front stitch marker now. Well, you did it. That's it. So this is how to create this cute little heart C2C square with a border. So gather all of your squares, and then you can decide how you want to actually join these. There's several different methods. You can join them with a raised stitch in the center, and that would be a single crochet. So you can just go through each of the stitches and do a single crochet to join them. You can do a mattress stitch, which hides it. I really love the way that this stitch and the border kind of makes it looks like a quilt, or it's like it's quilted, and this is so soft. So I'm going to try to figure out which one I want to join with, and then I'm going to come back and demonstrate how to do the joins. Once you put all your pieces together and figure out how you want your colors, then start joining the pieces and make sure you weave in all your tails. I've already weaved in my tails on most of these just to get a jump on things, and I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see how this is going to turn out. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I really love these colors. They're so pretty.